turn off the lights in the back.
Well, don't turn them all off, I'll get lost. Folks, I'm gonna take my jacket off. So I'm from upstate New York, so when I left the house on Monday on my way to Tennessee, it was 37. So anything over 75 degrees, we're in trouble. At 80 degrees, we're laying out on the ground where I live. So I don't know how y'all do it in the summertime. It's
Which is better, water or out?
so.
That's good.
Okay, I don't know that I can make that go any farther against the wall for y'all to see, but there we go. So, again, my name is Mike Braden. I have another gentleman who's going to say a few words here at the end of the meeting, Terry Drury. He's here locally from Georgia. But as we talk through the process, when Terry gets up, you'll see how it kind of all dovetails together. Thank you, first of all, for coming out tonight to take a look at this presentation. Also, I represent a company called Nokia. Just a tiny, tiny bit about that company. So it is a conglomeration of 3 different research and development houses. For those of you that are old enough, right? The American piece of that puzzle is something called Western Electric Bell Labs. So if you remember Ma Bell and the Bell system, the research and development houses, the people that invented the transistor for the transistor laser, the laser. If you walk into Best Buy, see a curved TV, the curve, that technology. If you own one of these, and it's an Apple, we own 40% of the intellectual property of that device. If you have a Samsung phone, we own 90% of that, right? So it's the American technology company. It's merged with a French company called Alcatel and the Finnish company called Nokia. So you can't have that long a name in your email address, so we've settled on Nokia. You may remember them as phones back in the 90s here in the United States. If you followed the Matrix movie when Neo's running through and pulling down his phone and get me out of here, Mr. Wizard, right? You know, that's a Nokia phone. This fall, we'll be bringing those phones back to the United States, and you'll see them in all the different stores and stuff, so you'll be able to kind of make a reference. So we build the technology. If you make a cell phone call here out on those towers that you see, the magic at the base of the towers, what's on the top of the towers, that would be us. So we're in your lives in a lot of different places. The specific division that I represent, and I have business development responsibilities for North America, we work with communities like yours who have been left out by some of our largest customers, AT&T and Verizon, who have not brought the internet to your township. And from a business modeling standpoint, you may wait a lot longer in order to get those high-speed broadband connections. So when I met Al about maybe 9 months ago, I guess it was, Al?
Yes, sir.
We talked together about putting together a business model for you all to take a look at, to try to figure out how much it would cost to bring this to your community. And so tonight, part of the presentation will be to actually look at the numbers and see how much this is actually going to cost the community. And the topology or the network that we would put is actually fiber to the home, right? So this would be fiber connectivity from your house out through a pipe that would end up theoretically in 56 Marietta in Atlanta, and that's how you would connect to the planet Earth. So that is kind of the package, right, that we've been thinking about, and that's how we have actually priced the model for the community. Any questions? That's kind of the start of this conversation. So I'll just walk you through a couple of slides briefly, which kind of is the presentation that we made to some of the members here inside of the working group. And this is a copy which I'll be happy to leave with Al if you want to share this with the community.
Okay.
There's no intellectual property that needs anything special. So for the city, there was an interest in building this fiber optic network. We have a partnership with a company called Graybar. and also with Corning. Those of you that know Corning ware from the kitchen, or Corning the glass, they make the fiber optic cables that power these kinds of networks. So that is the team of companies that's kind of behind putting the package together. We took a copy of the maps and all the information that we could get. I rode by most everybody's house that's here probably tonight, although I can't remember all the street names or exactly where I went, but I did go from one end of this town to the other in pretty much all the neighborhoods to take a look at what the actual build would actually be, how we would do it, and that of course drove what the cost would be. For Al's group, what we have been doing over the last 5 or 6 months is actually a technology education process, right? So you would say, at the simplest level, what kinds of services are we thinking about bringing to your home? So we've looked at 4 levels of services that would be provided to the community. We've looked at 100 megabit symmetrical service. We've looked at a half a gig or 500 megabit service. We've looked at 1,000 megabit service, which is what they call gig. And those of you that read up on it on the internet, right? Gig service, places like Chattanooga, Bristol, Tennessee, Bristol, Virginia. If you're living in the right place in Georgia, AT&T U-verse. If you're living in New York, where I live, that would be called Verizon Fios. If you're living in Denver, Colorado, that would be called CenturyLink's Prism service, right? So a set of services that would provide 1,000 megabits to your house, but also the technology that we've talked with your team about, the same system would also provide 10 gigs to the house. But that's a little pricey, and I don't think that anyone actually needs 10,000 megabits to their, or 1,000 megabits to their house. So those are the services that we've been talking about providing to the community with this fiber optic network. A couple of things, though, have to happen in this process, right? There's a business model, and I'll show you a little bit of the business model that we did. The other thing that we have to take a look at if the community decides to go forward and goes into the next steps is we have to perform what we call a feasibility and marketing study. So to kind of go a little further ahead, that will be one of the key next steps. So through the electrical bills or through mailers or through phone calls, there will be a regular group that will get together and will actually talk to probably most of the citizens in the community and find out if there's kind of an up and down vote if you want this. Because it's, you know, as you're going to see the price tag, it's real money, right, that's just going to have to be invested into the community in order to make this come to life. And we'll talk about those dollar amounts a little bit later. Okay, so when we did the business analysis, we said that in this total community and the total number of homes that would actually be passed by this network, and the network would eventually pass 100% of the houses. No one will be left behind in this. 40% of you will probably make the change when you see the services to this network. So that's how the model was actually built. We have assumed at this point we're only looking at a high-speed internet connection. So, and we can debate this, and you folks, we can talk about this together. We have not contemplated bringing a video service to the house or a voice service to the house at this time. But that can change. That is dependent upon what you all would like to see in the business model. We have alternatives and we can talk through it. Go ahead.
That service would be available once the fiber is out there.
That is correct. So we have other business partners who could actually bring a white labeled video and a white labeled voice service as part of it. And there could be many of those different players that could come onto this network and provide those services to you. The reason that we kind of went down that road, if you had a TV like this in your house that you bought from Best Buy and you went and you hooked it up and you had a high-speed internet connection and you clicked on it and turned it on, what you'd find at the bottom of that TV is you would find Hulu, Netflix, and Amazon. You'd find a lot of different applications that are now loaded upon the TV sets and the newer TVs. And so if you were in my home and you went upstairs to my wife's TV set, the only thing that runs on that TV is Netflix, because she doesn't like TV commercials. So there are a lot of streaming applications that are coming down the road, and all you really need to get most of the TV services today is really an ultra high-speed broadband connection. So that's why the folks here chose that as the starting point for the network. Any questions?
Is this gonna go the other side down the state?
Wherever,
You're talking about across 85,
Yes.
Meadowbrook, St. Charles.
Bradbury.
Yeah, Bradbury. The whole enchilada. This is the idea of this presentation, that we would connect everybody with fiber. However, for everything there's a cost, and we'll get into that. But what we're trying to find out, if I may say, is there interest in this because there's a cost involved?
It's a cost to everything.
right. Yeah, yes, sir.
You were talking about speeds earlier, you're talking about 4 different speeds. How do each of those 4 speeds compare with 4G? Because when you're sitting there talking about 1,000 megabytes, 2,000 megabytes, people really don't understand the speed.
Okay, so if you have a phone, right, and you're connected to something called LTE, which is 4G service, and there are 4 services running in the United States right now. If you ever look at your phone and it says 1X, right, that's one technology. And there's something called 3G, there's 2G, 3G, and 4G. We're inventing 5G as we sit here and talk to y'all, and we'll start bringing 5G technology out into the wild world. So to answer your question, if you connect to the tower today, the fastest that the tower is running is 1 gigabit. You share that service with everyone that's talking to that tower at any given point in time. So that's the way it's set up. So that tower supports sometimes up to 200 or up to 300 or 400, depending upon the tower you're actually connected to. So it's a shared service. But that is the speed. So this phone, probably connected to that tower, will probably run at about somewhere between 15 and 20 megabits at peak load. May go a little higher if there's less people on it. When you go to the next set of phones, because in order to connect to the 5G technology that's coming, you can take all your phones here and, I'll pass out a basket, throw them in, right? Because they won't work on the 5G network. They will work on the 4G network, and the 4G LTE network will last for at least another 10 years. It'll be out there, but it won't go it will go a little bit faster than today, but not much faster. When we go to 5G technology, the tower will run at 25 gigabits, and it will run much faster. But in order to connect to that tower at 5G, you need to be within 500 feet of it. So that's a whole brand new technology that has to be laid out. They call that small cell technology, and it will take about $3 trillion here in the United States to implement that, and it will take us somewhere between 10 and 12 years to actually make that come to life. So that investment's coming. The phones will start at about $2,000 a copy. So hang on to yourselves, folks. But it's coming. It'll be here in another year and a half.
So on the 1 gigabit, now you're sitting there talking about the phones share that gigabit of information.
That's correct. Yeah.
So if the phones are sharing the 1 gigabit, are you talking about there will be a dedicated 1 gigabit to each household? Or are we also going to be sharing that information?
You are going to be, yes, that's a great question. So if you bought 1 gig service from AT&T today and you read your contract, it says that we will give you up to 1 gigabit. So the way that the 1 gigabit speed works in the United States today is 32 users share 2.5 gigabits download and 1.25 upload. So every household in the network that you have today has 80 megabits dedicated to your home. Dedicated. But if your neighbors aren't using it, or remember, basically, when the way the system works is it asks you if you have anything to send or receive. So in a 1 gigabit service where it's being 2.5 down and 1.25 up, shared by 32 people, at 186,000 miles per second, that conversation takes place. So to you, it looks like and it feels like a gigabit service. But the actual dedication to the side of your house is only 80 megabits down and 40. Now, if your other 31 neighbors aren't using it, you've got full access to the 2.5 gigabits. But remember, that router in your house that's talking to all your devices, how fast is it going? It's only going as fast as the 802.11 AC allows it to go. And so there's a lot of fancy statistical multiplexing that takes place in that, and there's a lot of fun, fancy marketing that you see on TV, but you're right on. It's only about 80 and 40, and the internet, the real internet, right, that's going out of Marietta, the real internet runs at about 20 minutes. That's how fast it goes.
All right. On another idea, the charter internet, and the other landlines that they have out there.
Yep.
They talk about they have a terabit connection, or they have 100 meg connections, stuff like that. Those are really high speed, gaming speeds and stuff. Will this be able to keep up with that?
This eclipses all of that. I'm a gun runner, so I sell to everybody. So all the routers that are in the back of Comcast, Time Warner, Spectrum, Cox's networks, right, that would be us. Right, so they play the same game that everyone else plays, right? Because the bandwidth on the back end is very, very, very expensive, right, to buy, to be able to transport you around the world. So they use a system to their modems called DOCSIS. And the DOCSIS network that you have here doesn't run anywhere near those kinds of speeds. Part of the strategy to convince you all to move to the network that Al, who's walking around here, is thinking about, is that is also a shared service, right? Is what they call a shared bus. So the way a cable TV company works is they have a node that's in the field that's powered by electricity, and that coaxial cable that comes into your house and goes to your modem is shared just like the gigabit, the 2.5 down to 1.5 up. Theirs is 1 by 1. Yours is going to be 2.5 by 1.25, or if you decide you can have 10 round trip, 10 gigabits, right? If you want to pay the money, you can have 10 gigabits at your house. I don't know what you're going to do with it, but you can have it, right? Because you're paying for it. So the cable folks, the way their network works is they move the node closer and closer and closer to your home over time. And that allows them to bring the fiber, because it's fiber fed, it moves the fiber closer and closer to your house. And as it moves closer, it can go faster. And there's less people on it. So they make the node smaller and quicker. They will, I don't think they will come and overbuild this network if you put this network into place. Because they would have to overbuild our whole system here in this community in order to compete with what Al and his team are actually proposing to do. Fact of the matter is, though, is can they achieve 100 megabit speed? Can they achieve a gigabit speed? Yes, they will be able to do all of those things. Eventually, and I have my equipment in every single one of their labs here in the US and in a lot of other places in the world, they are also looking at fiber to the home, which is the proposal that we have here on the table.
It's gonna be a limit every month.
There's no data, I'm sorry, if you're asking, is there a data limit?
Yes.
And only unless Al decides that he wants to put one on you. The answer is no.
The answer is no.
The answer is no.
Whatever you want.
Okay, you're on the hot seat.
It was nice of you to have, on behalf of the Grateful Nation, thank you, but
No.
Can I?
Sure.
I said one thing about, you're asking about what you have now and what's available. If you go to the little plug in your house that you've got that's coming in from whoever it is, and it's your telephone line, you and I can have a conversation over that telephone line. And there's a second set, it's called twisted pair, there's a second pair of wire in there. This is all really technical, way beyond what I was hoping to say. So we can have something, we might even be able to make a conference call, one out on that other line at the same time and tie somebody in. That's what you can get over that twisted pair coming in. It's a 100-year-old technology that we're still using, and the phone company's bleeding it to death. Okay? With the fiber, you and I could have, I hope you listen to this, 8,000 simultaneous conversations on one strand of fiber smaller than a human hair. Okay, so that's the kind of capacity you're talking about. The other piece of it is you're talking about 2.5 and 1.5 and 4 and 2 and all the other things that get me confused when I go through it. With fiber, you got one and you got one. It's called asynchronous when you can upload and download at different speeds. It's synchronous when you're doing both. If you're running a business and you're in wherever you are, go to Noonan, and you can do it in Noonan. You go to Noonan and you hook up to it, then what you're going to find out is you're downloading something, you can get it pretty quick. But you need to send an order to me to buy something, you can sit there and watch that little wheel turn. Because it's going up at half or less speed that it's coming back to me. So it's asynchronous. And what a business needs, and school needs, industry needs, government needs, is real simple, and that's synchronous speeds. And the fiber will give it to you forever. And to go to the 180,000 mile thing, and I'm going to shut up, the 180,000 mile per hour deal with the speed, unless we invent something faster than the speed of sound, I don't care how many G's they come up with. It just doesn't matter. So it's a final solution for you, and you can look at it as a future-proof technology. Sorry.
No, it's all good. Any other thoughts in the audience? Yes, ma'am.
I came in a little late, I think. These are some questions that I personally wanted to ask. You may have already gone over them, I'm not sure.
Fire away.
And who is the backhaul provider?
That's to be determined,
Okay.
right? So we have to find someone who will actually help us to transport from this location to 56 Marietta. There's a variety of players. For example, I'll give you one, right? I could pick up the phone and call my daughter, number two. Daughter number two, I have them numbered, so we can talk about that offline. But daughter number two works for CenturyLink in Las Vegas, right? So if Level 3 or CenturyLink came down Route 85, right, and there are a lot of service providers that are on that super highway, we could talk to them about opening up a point of presence, and we could connect to that running, because we're going to run the fiber across 85 anyway. So there are probably half a dozen providers here in the state who would be happy to take and be your backhaul provider. But our goal is going to be to get to 56 Marietta. That would be the key. I don't know, Terry, if you want to talk to that. I know you do this a lot here.
Yeah,
So
it's easy.
that wouldn't be a problem.
It's a phone call. And then people will be coming clamoring for your business.
Okay.
You let them know you got it. They want the backhaul.
I'm not really aware, I'm naive about a lot of this, so I'm learning. The other question, well, there's a few. Is it ISDN?
Nope.
No, okay.
Nope.
What would be the average latency times?
The average latency time is depending upon the fiber optic network, but probably somewhere between 1 and 5 milliseconds would be the latency between here.
You won't notice it.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, you won't. Yeah, unless the service, unless 1 to 5 millisecond round trip is I don't know how to. It's 1/1000th of a second. So that's from here to Marietta, from here to 56 Marietta, it's about 1/1000th.
And I believe we already went over what the upload speeds?
Yeah, the upload speeds can be anywhere from, the upload speeds will be anywhere from 100 megabytes to 10 gigabytes.
But the secret is that you get to decide. The community can decide what those are. And you just price it accordingly to people.
Yeah, but those are your bottom and your top.
Two
The
more.
higher the speed, the higher the cost.
There you go.
Okay.
That's the easy way to put it. It's just like filling your gas tank.
Well, that's true to a certain extent. Let me interrupt you for just a second.
No, please do.
Okay. It is the higher speed that you're buying from whatever entity you have, City of Granville or the Warmsbid Phone Company, whatever you want to call it. Whatever that entity is can price it however they want, depending on the speed you do and sell it, and you would control that, okay? the reality is that it doesn't cost you any more to build it, to put that fiber in the ground and have the high speed than it would to put the fiber in the ground and have low speed, because it's fiber in the ground. It doesn't know. So, maybe that explains it.
All right, just a couple more.
Sure.
We have already answered and went over the last one, but this one is, will speeds be throttled based on content?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And then, the last one was, will there be data limits? And I understand that, well,
No, there will not be data limits.
Not in the system, it's just whatever you decide.
It's what, yeah,
okay, who's gonna make that decision?
y'all
Y'all
are gonna make that decision.
The citizens or the city?
whatever the entity is that operates it.
Yeah, so it would be a city decision, but you're all citizens of the city,
Yeah,
so
so-
it's really gonna
So
be
tell him if you
your,
don't like it.
yeah.
His phone number's available.
I think everybody knows it.
But from a pure, you know, to answer it, I don't want to be facetious. To answer it from a pure technology standpoint, the answer is those are all what we call artificial barriers, right? The plan is to find a backhaul provider that will give the city a pipe, right, to the location we talked about. It's built into the business model to give you an idea of what that actual cost is on a monthly basis that the city would have to pay for that. And frankly, no, it's really, there's no intent to throttle any of it, right? Now, what will happen is though, and I'll give you one story, right, kind of out of school. So we were running along real happy here on the internet here in the United States and on internet. And so everything was great. And then somebody came along and invented this thing called Netflix. So at night, 55% of all the ones and zeros, all the data that moves in the United States of America is provided by one player, Netflix. Now, we have figured out tricks, right? So we take those high-end movies you all like to watch, right, and we move them real close to you. So, for example, if you're in Chattanooga, there's one right out here in the next, in the next room, right? There's a server that has those movies and that high-playing content sitting right there, so that we could trick, right? Because in the beginning, all your content, when you asked for Netflix, it came straight from California and had to come all the way across the United States. So it was sucking up all the bandwidth. So that was a problem, right? So then AT&T came up with the brilliant idea that we just kind of throttle you down, right? And save on that bandwidth, right? So it wasn't so much that they didn't like people, it was just that they were trying to keep their network alive. Now, we fixed that problem pretty much, but they left the throttling in there because they can get you to pay a few more bucks if you want to use a lot of the internet. So this solution that we've brought to Grantville has none of those restrictions. There are no speed controls on the car. It'll go as fast as you can push the gas pedal.
Thank you.
Yeah, anything else, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Okey doke. Okay, yes, sir.
I just have one. Now, this system that we're going to install, we're going to be able to sell it to all the citizens.
That's correct.
Do all the citizens need to subscribe to this system?
No.
Okay.
Right now,
No.
The answer to that is no. It's going to be a choice. Right now, the business model expects that 4 out of 10 households will take the service.
Okay. And the more, would the unit cost go down if we had more subscribers?
No, not really. Actually, the cost will go up because we've got to put more equipment into more people's homes. But in terms of the business model and the loan that the city would have to take in order to build the network, it would be paid off. If that number went from 40% to say 55% take rate, the amount of time it would take to pay off the loan would be half the amount of time that you're going to see up here on the board. So the more people that take it, the faster you're going to be able to see the light of day and pay off the loan.
Well, the point I was trying to make is broadband doesn't know city limits. And we've got Moreland over here that is in need, Lutherville that's in need. We may even be able to tap some, is there any way that we can have this as a profit center?
Oh, absolutely.
It will be, you won't be able to help it. Once you've paid off the loan, that money still comes in every month.
Yeah, so let me give you, that's a great question. So I'll give you a kind of a very good news story. Because it's in the newspaper, and if you want to do the fact-checking thing, you can hop on Google and do the fact-checking thing. So the city of Chattanooga, about 10 years ago, decided to get into this, and they're the first city in the United States called the Gig City, right? So if you were to go up, and we're probably going to invite some of the folks here to go up and actually talk to them, they build a network for their community of interest. They are service competitors are AT&T, Uverse, and Comcast Infinity. They own it now. Over the 7 years they've been in service, they have basically got about 55% market share, and they return annually back to the electrical company who put the loan up there, cash flow positive. They return back to the electrical company about $40 million a year, to Mr. Drury's point. And so what do they do with that money? Well, there's lots of things that they've done. They build a tech center. They use the money to help get the Volkswagen plant in there, add another 30,000 jobs to the community, good paying jobs. But they also were able to save their community 6 rate increases in the power. That's real money, folks, in your pocket, right? So it is, if you want to think of it, right, if you start to build it out and make it a bigger player and bring more people to the thing, it's a casino. It's a cash machine. And again, we can look at the numbers and you can take it and you can decide for yourself.
Just one more question. There was a Harvard study done a few years ago that pretty much said that 90% of the cities who have done their own internet, their own ISPs, similar to what you want to do, it hasn't worked. It's been unsuccessful and it's been costly. Do you have a city that is profitable, that is successful right now?
Every single city that we've done is cash flow positive. I've done 30 here in the United States. The Harvard study was funded by a group of guys that do not think municipalities need to be in this business or providing this service. And I'm glad that those guys were not around when you decided whether you needed to have water, sewer, gas, and electric.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
So every single city that I have is cash flow positive. And I'm happy to put those cities on the table, and I'm happy to give you the names and the numbers, and you can call them and you can talk to them.
What's the closest one that you have?
Chattanooga would be the closest.
Okay.
Dalton's right next door, so you could go up to Dalton, Georgia. They're about the same size as y'all. They've been in business for about 15 years. They make most of their profits backhauling the towers that have the 4G LTE on it. But as you know, that's where y'all make most of the carpet here in the United States there. So it's their water company that actually does it. And they've been at this, I would say again, they were ahead of Chattanooga, so they've been in business about 12, 13 years. I'm sure they'd be more than happy to talk to your team about and show them the books.
Michael, to follow up on Sarge's question, Moreland, Luthersville, Hogansville, if we had our ISP here and our cable, our fiber network, we could expand if they had customers to those locations, could we not?
You could, as long as we don't break into state regulations and.
Yeah, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me interject here. I'm sorry to butt in.
No, please.
We've done this, okay? And it's really, we call it a cluster effect. You just bring in the other towns to it. Think of this, you've got this interstate going past Moreland, I-85, okay? You got no off-ramp, okay, for your data. You don't have one. They don't either. We can bring them in, build the off-ramp, which is what he's talking about, to connect to 56 Marietta, and you're out there with the rest of the world. You, in theory, could sell Westlake, Louisiana your services. What it would take to do is put a marketing team to go out there and sell services from you and call it the XYZ service company. I mean, you can do all sorts of things. So bringing in the outside is not a problem.
Thank you.
You mentioned in your previous meeting that we had that you were gonna ask, I'm assuming it's the number 2 door, what backhaul provider was out here at the interstate? Did you ever find out who's out there? That
Yeah, level 3 is right outside the door. We would have to talk to them, but there are other, frankly, and this is one of the reasons I asked Mr. Drury to come, because he's been doing this here in the state for a while. They're great, that's, now CenturyLink, right? It's a multi-billion-dollar company. And I'm sure that we could convince our engineers to cut cut in and get you a point of presence at some price, right? But there may be some local service providers here that once you make a decision as a community to go ahead with this, I would look, and this is me talking, I don't know if Terry has a comment, but sure, we can get a national provider, but if we could get a local provider, I'd rather have someone local do it for you, because it's easy to get their phone number, and if something goes wrong, it's easy to get to them. But that's a choice that y'all will have to make.
Yeah, I think I mentioned when we talked before, you know, I would assume that they didn't build lakes over there without high-speed internet. It's 5 miles from the stop sign right here to Blaylock Lakes, or the fire department. I don't have to talk about this, but there's some other high-speed internet optics somewhere. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure, you know, driving down here tonight, I stayed in Newman last night. I am sure that those internet service providers are coming right by the door here on
They're all running right down 85 and the railroad tracks. Take your pick. I guarantee you there's fiber down the railroad track. I guarantee you.
Well, they let you
I
hook
did
on
spread
to
in
it.
the, in the 80s, and you look like you may remember this. They used to have a commercial on TV, and a pin would drop on a conference table, and they said so clear you could hear a pin drop. And that was them putting in fiber for the backbone of running across the country, and we did a deal with Great Northern Railroads, and did all of the right-of-ways for the trains, and that's exactly where it all got started back in the 80s, with Sprint doing that. Sorry.
I think somebody just put in conduit this past year along 29, and I think that was for CSX or whatever railroad company is. Correct.
Here's the issue. Nobody's coming here to do this for you. Guarantee it. Won't happen.
But there's conduit.
Austell, Georgia is sitting there. The mayor of Austell, Georgia, who's the one who's been there for 30-something years, I was telling you about, was sitting there, and he's 100 yards from the fiber running across in front of where they took an old train station or whatever it was, and converted cotton mill or something, converted to their offices. And he couldn't get Comcast to run fiber from that to the building.
Yeah.
So I can
So
tell you.
you're saying the answer there was for them to take charge of it themselves?
They had to.
But they could hook on to that
Sure.
fiber optic line we're talking about.
It's because it's open.
Yeah, but not to confuse everybody here, right? So we're talking about two things here at the moment, right? And it goes to the gentleman in the back. So think of a dot here, and think of a device that is going to connect, right? From let's say it's in this building right here, right? So from here, we'll run to the farthest 4 points inside of the community. As Al said, we're not going to leave anyone behind, right? Then, somehow, some way, from this dot, we've got to find our way, and this is a little backwards, right, because I got north pointing down, so I'm not a very good engineer. And we're aiming for 56 Marietta. Now, it's not necessarily going to be a straight line to get there, right? But this is one set of connectivity that the city will have to pay monthly for. So let me give you an example of what that would be. So, let's see, how many, you have like
1,140 households.
Okay, so for every 1,000 households who have gig service, you need 1 gig of backhaul internet to service them. It is what they call statistical multiplexing software. So 5, 6, 7 years ago, with AT&T, for every AT&T UVerse gig service that they put out, 3,000 houses were tied to 1 gig on the back end of internet connectivity. Then Netflix came along, and a couple other services like that came along, and the whole game changed overnight. So, in order to supply this internet service, you would have to buy this pipe, probably 2 to 5 gigabits on the back end. You buy this pipe, and it's going to cost somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 a month for the city to have that pipe to 56 Marietta. That is your internet connectivity. It's your path to the whole world. Okay? And there are 3 or 4 of these big ones in the U.S. You just happen to be fortunate enough that one of them is only sitting about 30 miles from where you all sit. There's one here. There's a big one in Chicago. There's one outside of New York. Las Vegas is the largest by far. That's where we watch and see what y'all are doing. And there's a couple others that are smaller, right? But those are the meet points. So in the Las Vegas case, all the fiber from South America comes in one direction, Canada comes the other, the US comes in the middle. Another jumping off point is Miami, Florida, right? So, and then Boca Raton, Florida, if you folks know where that is. That's where all the cables come from Europe, from the south end, from the north end, they come in somewhere outside of New York City. So that's how the world is kind of connected. The reason I know that is because that's what we also do, right? So if you're running an undersea cable, like we just got done doing from Saudi Arabia, we flipped around all of the African continent and just finished up in Gibraltar. So all of that connectivity, the undersea stuff, that's another one of our things we do. But to the point here is, so there's a cost of about $3,000 a month, I think we have in the business model, and that's how we're going to connect you all to the internet. And as the lady asked in the back, are you going to throttle that service? Are you going to slow that service down? Is it going to be able to provide connectivity at whatever speed you want? The answer is yes. And that's going to be that price. It's got to be paid on a monthly basis to make that all come to life. Now, that's one picture. Now take that one away, right? The one that we want to concentrate on now is, how are we going to get from where I'm standing to your house? And how much is that going to cost? You, right, as a community? And how much do we think that we can do that and then charge you a service price for the services that would go on that and make this whole network pay off, right? That's kind of where, that's the box we're in at this point. So let me stop there. Any other questions before I go forward? Yes, sir.
So if you're saying, your projection is like 40% of the households would take that. So if 40%, if only 40% of a community, a subdivision, let's say there's 30, 40 homes in that, want that, they'll be able to get that. I mean, they'll be able to, you'll be able to bring your fiber optics or put your conduits in or whatever.
Yes.
But that's sort of like the magical number, 40%.
I think it's the magical number, and we could make it lower, but I'll give you kind of kind of a look at that.
When you say magical number, you mean break even?
Yeah, so here's the picture. This is a bit of an eye chart, right? But if you're okay with this, we'll just go right through it. So we took a look at this in a study, and so 1,141 plus 46 small businesses is where I kind of arrived at the 1,187. That was the number I used. It goes up and down every day. We said, to your point, that we will pass 100% of the community, right? That's table stakes, right? We're not leaving anybody behind. We're not playing the Google Fiber, you're a fiber hood and you get it and your neighbors don't get it. We're not playing that game. 40% of the customers of all the ones we pass will actually take the service. And how are we going to pay for that? So we took out a loan over 20 years at 4% interest and said, let's run it and let's see how much money we're going to make and how long it's going to take to pay off. So to get cash flow positive, so that means cash flow positive just means that we are able to service the loan. So we've borrowed money and we're at the point where now we're in the process of paying the loan off. So it will take us 2.5 years to get to that point using the 40% number. Now, if we had more than 40% take the service, that number would be much shorter, right? Okay, so far so good. So how long is it going to take us to pay for the car, right? So any of you that buy cars, you know the drill, right? You can take, now you can take up to 75 months, right, to pay off. And the cars you buy cost more than my first house. So anyway, the payback period for this loan at that rate is going to take us 9 years and 9 months. Okay? If you were buying a sewer plant, it would probably be about the same kind of a play. If you were rebuilding a water plant or putting in a new substation, very, very similar kind of a play. We will take in revenue about $10 million, and it will cost us about $3 million to operate it, and it's going to cost us a little less than $2 million to build it. So those are kind of the high level numbers. Our rate of return is about 11.6%. Now, all that being equal, if you want to do I call it the back of the napkin math to a question that was asked earlier, is if we're taking in 10 million and we're paying out 3 and it costs us 2 to build, that leaves us $5 million to return back to the community over time. So there will be money available to start returning back to the community at 2 years and 6 months, but we'll be able to return about $5 million over the 20-year life of the project to the community. What would you do with that money? If you're in Chinook, Kansas, they take their money and they build ball fields. Okay? Not a bad idea, right? Other folks that we have, like Bristol, Tennessee, they reinvest it into the network, make the network better and faster, and they give some of the money away to charity. So it all depends. This is your community. You do what you want with the money once the money starts flowing in the door. That's entirely up to you and your city council. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll hit you with a hypothetical. Should the city decide that they want this, and the residents want this, and all the contractors are hired to put the underground, the conduit in, the fiber optics, what's a projected time frame to have all that done?
Great question. So, let's see if I can do this. I'll do this in simple terms and then I'll show it to you a little bit differently. So, in the presentation, we had to borrow about 1.8 million. We're going to spend somewhere a little over that over the 20 years. And we did it as a mortgage, just like you would be like you were buying a house, right? And we set up 2 mortgages to run. The way we did this is there won't be a single customer on this network for the first 7 months. So the build is going to be about 42 months from one end to the other, 3 years. Okay, but it'll be 7 months of work to put the network in place, the electronics in place, to start to build the cable out to you, and it will take another probably 2 years to get it all done to everyone. Now, it's a great debate, and I'm going to leave that debate to Al, and I'm going to get out of the room, right, as to who gets it first and which direction you go. That one, you all can arm wrestle, figure that one out yourself, right? But the point is it's about a 3-year build. Now, could you do it faster? Sure, you could do it faster. This is all to be determined, right, as to how quick you can do it. We could bring someone like Corning into play, and I think Terry, I see him nodding, right? If you said to me, okay, we'll borrow the $2 million, you go get the contractors, line it all up, could we do it in 12 months? Yeah, it might cost $2.2 million to make it happen because you're going to be going super, super fast, but here's your advantage. There's a couple of 3 advantages, so I'll go off the page with you. The first thing is, and I get to do this, I mean, the folks at AT&T and Verizon, you know, they put up this sign like the Dracula sign to me, but here's the deal. You're basically taking the money, the $2 million bucks, out of yourselves, and you're investing it in yourselves. Now, why would you do that, right? Because at the end of the day, right, you can give your money to Comcast. You can give your money to all them other folks, right? I'm sure the Comcast people, they live in Philadelphia, I'm sure they're happy to have your money. Or you can put the money back here and use the money and create the environment to get businesses. Be nice to have, I've driven your town, be nice to get a grocery store in here that would stay open until 10, 11 o'clock at night. I'm sure a couple restaurants probably wouldn't mind it either, and I'm sure you wouldn't mind it either, right? It's tough. I have to drive 27 miles from my house to get to a decent grocery store. So I know what it's all about where I live, you know, and it took me 9 house moves and 30 years to get back there. So it is very, very hard. Now, sure, you can top, those of you that like the internet, right, you can top on to Amazon Prime here, and pretty soon you may be able to order dinner and get it brought down here, but probably the service delivery charge is gonna be a little stiff. But the point is that we want to try to see if we can do something for you, with you, to put the money and put the jobs back here, and let you keep your money home. That's pretty much where Al started me in this conversation 7-8 months ago. Chattanooga's used it to defer rate increases for their 160,000 customers, right? I don't know what you'll do with the money. That decision, if we go down this road, that's your decision.
Wait, can you go back to that revenue? The revenue that you bring in, $10 million.
Yep.
That's over 20 years for everybody.
40%. Yes.
40%. Okay,
Yes.
so the 40% is going to give you $10 million in 20 years.
That's correct.
Okay, now
Over 20 years.
Spread out.
spread out over. So that's average about $90 a month for every individual. The 40%.
That's about right. So, but we can look at it a little differently. Here, let me put something up on the board.
I'm a numbers guy, so I'm sitting here.
No, it's great. It's a great question. Let me toss up one of the models. And I apologize to all of you. It's a little bit of an eye chart. But let me go here. Blow it up as much as I can. So I'm not a really fancy guy. I mean, this thing has balance sheets and income statements and all that fun stuff, and Al has a copy of all that. But I'm not that smart, folks. So I built a checkbook, right? So it's like the checkbook of my house. You see a lot of that red that's in there? That would be my checkbook. So as you can see, the network grows over 3 years. So we start with about 300 subscribers the first year. Up on the top number, we're going to grow to the 1187. And some percentage of them, 40% is going to take the number. So if you're looking from a cash flow perspective, we're only at the end of year 3, we're only going to have about $20,000 in the bank that we can either work to pay off the loan, or we can go and put some lights on a ball field someplace. At the end of the 4th year, we'll return about 190 grand, and that runs pretty solid. You'll have about $200,000 in working capital every year coming back to you. And you can, again, you could pay off the loan faster, but building up that cash run right to the end, where you're going to have net cash of about $4.4 million at the end of the year.
Are you increasing the populace, or you're basing the numbers on the populace that we have now?
I am basing it on the populace that you have today.
Well, it's interesting to me because Coweta County is one of the fastest growing counties in the United States, really. And our property value is really zooming because we've got industry coming in here. So based on your numbers, in 10 years, this populace, I guarantee, will double in this area.
We hope so.
And
I like your attitude.
I guarantee it will. So your numbers in 10 years are going to double. So now you're doubling your money.
Yeah, but and I'd love to play that game on a sheet of paper and paint a rosy picture, but that isn't what I do. So, but I'm with you.
That's realistic.
Yeah,
because of the populous growth that we're having right now.
Well, there's another way that it's realistic, and that is he's only using 40%.
That's what I'm saying.
National average is
Yes.
50%.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what we said.
The national average for towns that have done this is 54% of people take it.
Yeah, but I mean, I was.
But you gotta be conservative.
See, I was with a board of directors in Greenville, Tennessee about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I was pushed on this, and I've been pushed by multiple boards. I don't really go much higher than 40. I'll do it because I'll run sometimes 20 or 30 of these before you all will make a final decision. This is only version 2. There'll be, if you folks tell the team to go forward, if you were to come back to another meeting, it'd probably be version 25. Right, so we'll take a look at all of that. I think it's great, having worked all over the world. If you've ever been to Phoenix, Arizona, or if you ever have an opportunity to pull Phoenix, Arizona up on Google Maps. So there was Route 60 went through the middle. Then they built 101, which goes through Scottsdale. And then they built a loop around Phoenix. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, they had to go another 20 miles out, and they had to build another one. Now, if I were a betting man, which I am, so I won't race horses, I would tell you that 15, 20 years I come down here, there's going to be another loop around Atlanta, and it's going to be a big one. And probably the chances that you're sitting right where the loop's going to come, if you don't build all those houses, my guess is that thing's going to probably come within 2-3 miles of here. And it's probably gonna get a little noisy at night, but the bottom line is you're probably spot on. The city will come to you, and I've got plenty of examples around the world where this has happened. And I don't want to predict that, but if you want me to model it, and Al says model it, you betcha. I'll put it into play for you. You can take a good hard look at it.
What's our population right now?
We think about 3,300.
Now, is that households or is that?
No, that's population. Households, we go by water meters, 1,140, give or take some. That's what we used for the model. And when I heard this presentation many months ago up in Atlanta, we talked about it, and that's why we thought we should bring it down here for the residents. So you all could weigh in on it, because we think that growth is coming, and a fiber band around the city, making us a smart city, would be in the interest of our residents if they are in favor of it. It all depends on what the residents want. This is not something that gets forced down the way. This is for the residents to decide if this is the way they want the city of Grantville to go. Just another opportunity and challenge.
So, okay, so I don't know if I've answered your question.
Almost, I mean, okay.
Show
I
me the-
was basically breaking it down to the individual household, is what I want to see. I mean, I understand.
We have a cost.
and I-
We have a cost.
Oh, no, I will. I'll be
Okay.
happy to do that for
Okay.
you.
It depends on what you put on the body.
Well, that's right. Well, I mean, I understand that. I mean, I'm getting at that, but I mean, nobody in this room really, I mean, we want the city to make money, don't get me wrong. Because we want to be invested into it, bring business in, you know, make property values go up. But we're going to be concerned about what we're putting out.
Okay,
So-
well, here it comes, right? So at a big ticket level, the number's around $2 million. Okay, so that's number one. Now, what's your contribution to that on a monthly basis? So if you're not gonna mill it out and put it on your tax bill every year, which some folks have done, I'm not in favor of it, because I come from my part of the state in New York, even though we vote blue, my vote doesn't count, but if you live where I live, everything's kind of dark red, right? So I'm not big on taxes. So the point here is, we talked about the mill, that's not a good idea. So now, what we did is, it goes like this. I've got 4 levels of service there up on the table. Residential, small business, medium business, and large enterprise. Now, you don't have any medium or large enterprises here in your community at this point, but you've got some gas stations, you know, I kind of drove around there. There's a few businesses, and those businesses will come at some point. So, that's kind of where we left it. So, we have 2 charges that we're looking at this point. So, if you're a residential customer, you want 100 megabit symmetrical service, the price that we're putting on the table in this business model, we can change, this is again, something you all can talk about, is $49.95 a month, and we will bring a brand new gateway router to your house, right? And that will be part of the service, and we will charge approximately $9 and change for renting that. Now, the reason that it's a debate, right, as to whether you keep your Linksys router or your Belkin router in your house. Will it connect to this? Will it work? Yes. But if you have problems in the middle of the night, we've thought that if we were to provide you that gateway, first of all, it's a great revenue stream to help pay for the model, and those things change over time, and we would keep those up to date for you all. But that's a choice that the business model can be adjusted for, and that's something that you can put feedback on. Yep, go ahead.
And that's unlimited data, right?
That is unlimited data.
Gotcha.
And
After it gets so many down, does it slow down?
no, it does not.
And we thought $49.99 was sort of a sweet spot
It's sure no sweet.
that cost for cable and internet. I was in Noonan, I paid more for my internet than $49.99 and $9.95 for the router. So, again, that's something to think about, but that's where we got the business model. I'll give you the mic in just a minute.
So we
Can
have
we get it
29
next
houses in our subdivision. They don't have internet at all.
Yeah, those two.
So,
What's your subdivision?
You live over
Cracker. So 29 houses don't have internet. Sign us up. Let's get this done. We've been without internet forever and nobody wants to bring it in. How long is it gonna take the city to get to a point where this is gonna get going forward instead of just
Okay, if
spinning
you
wheels?
guys decide, can you speed up the process of getting it here? Well, I think we're all.
We're talking about more costs.
Yeah. How long is it gonna take the city to get it?
Yeah, we can just, you guys decide this, because we have letters over there, they have it on this side, but on the other side of the interstate, we have nothing.
Well, let me just interrupt for a minute. In May of 2016, I asked the Regional Director of External Affairs of AT&T about bringing internet to the city of Grantville. And he said, I'll look into it. Just recently, within the last month, I was at the Electric Cities of Georgia and talked to him again. And he did recognize who I was, which was nice. And he said, very simply, that AT&T has an office down on Broad Street. Half the city's covered, the other half isn't. I said, we understand that. When's that going to happen? Silence.
That's right, that's what it's.
It's not going to happen. That's why we're here tonight with Nokia. So we're looking at alternatives.
I can answer you that, AT&T. I lived in Charlesburg, and I remember the HOA board. I spent probably 3 months chasing my tail with AT&T, trying to find out what kind of information we can have. Our neighborhood is run with fiber optics. When it was built, they put fiber optics to the entire neighborhood. But the fiber optic line stops right there at Moreland, which is across the street from our neighborhood. And we can't get it to our neighborhood. So we asked, what is it going to take to get it to us? After 3 months of chasing my tail with them, I finally got an engineer from AT&T to tell me it's never going to happen.
I'll back that up.
They have to put in a brand new hub to cover because they're maxed. Everything they have out here, every house that has DSL right now, they're maxed out. That hub is not going to go any bigger, so they have to bring a brand new one in, and it's dead.
We've been trying for
They're phasing DSL out, and they're bringing
to get
fiber optics.
AT&T.
I worked at Coweta Hills as a maintenance manager up until about a couple of months ago. We paid AT&T to come in and run their fiber optics. I got to know the construction manager. I bought my house down here off of Greenfield Lane, and of course I like that high-speed fiber optic. It's the bomb to me, and all I do is watch TV.
He said the bomb.
Don't say that too loud, right? And so I asked him, I said, hey, dude, I told him where I live, and he said, John, he said, don't hold your breath, it ain't coming.
Yeah,
Not with AT&T.
and I mean, I was a director of engineering construction for Verizon, so, I mean, we've had these great debates over the years, so, I mean, just to look under the covers for y'all. So what's happened is, I hate to say it, because I did graduate from one of those schools, but everything that they do, every calculation that's made now is all based upon two things. A 30, 60, 90-day scorecard that they have, right? This is the world we live in, folks. And everything is done on a business model. Just to tell a small tale out of school, so I used to go onto the red carpet, as we called it, because that was our corporate headquarters at the time in Manhattan. And I would go in the door, and I would have my business case, and I would be asking the corporation for capital to build either high-speed DSL, VDSL is what they call it, very high-speed digital subscriber line, or fiber to the crossbox or fiber to the home, right? It hadn't really reached momentum yet, but something to give people something called the internet. College professors were using it, Playboy and Penthouse were using it, right? It got off the ground and got going. So anyway, but my counterpart would stand next to me, and he was going in, and he was talking about something that didn't have any wires, right? So he went in with his bottom business model and his rate of return. When he come out the door, he was smiling. And when I come out the door, tail between my legs. Who got the capital? So, you know, right, wrong, or indifferently, right? We had a mantra, 100 years, to provide service to everybody in the Bell system. The government decided at some point that wasn't a good idea anymore, and so it all broke apart. And so we've got what we have now. So here we are, and I tell this story, and I've heard it told to me as well. If I'm up in Tennessee last week in Rockwood, you'd have to find it on a map. They have just a few more people than you do. They're in the same boat that you are, right? They're up in the hills of Tennessee. They're in the land of time forgotten, right? Us New Yorkers are moving down there because my taxes on my house are 5 digits, right? And if I go down there, you know, it's a little less than 5 digits, right? So the world's changing. They all come down, they've all got internet, they've all got all this stuff. Now the community's trying to say, well, what are we going to do? Our kids go to school and they leave, they don't come back, we got nobody in church anymore. I got the same thing going on where I live. So how do we help you to get this environment changed so that people can live here and work here and have a life here, right? Because this is great. I mean, I drive around this community and you're only 30 minutes from the airport. I mean, I mean, you don't have to listen to the noise, you don't have probably the crime that they have downtown Atlanta. So how do we help you? So if you're a cooperative in Tennessee, the only way they got electricity was to dam up the rivers, create the TVA 80 years ago. Did the electricity company from New York come out and take care of Tennessee? Hell no. So this is the 21st century electricity. At least Al and I think it is, right? And this internet is going to give your kids and your grandchildren a chance to compete globally. And it also will allow you to attract a business with a straight face. How do you get somebody in here? I went to an office park in Rockwood, Tennessee, and I drove into the office park and they're doing light manufacturing and the buildings don't have any internet. How are they even surviving, right? They're on dial-up trying to get it. So I know that's outside of your community, but the point here is if you want to do this, right, you've got a $2 million price tag. Al and his team have told me it can't be more than $50 a month plus maybe $9 for the modem out of the box because people can't afford it here. And 100 megabit synchronous connection, if I put that in your houses and you push the button on that thing, I mean, you will think you got new computers. I'm telling you, it's amazing the difference. Now, you want to spend $69, we'll give you half a gig. You want to spend $89, we'll give you a gig. You want to spend $249, we'll give you 10 gigs. I don't know what you do with 10 gigs. I got folks in Saudi Arabia got 40 gigs in their house. I don't know what they do with it either.
Right? It's obvious, to me, this obviously is a good plan, but when I'm asked, like a gentleman said a while ago, what can our town do to speed the construction part of it up, and how much would it cost us? How much more would that cost?
Terry, before you answer that, a couple things have to happen, right? I mean, this is an awful thing for me to tell, but if Al wants to shortcut, it's up to him. So we would probably run a feasibility and a market analysis. So you're here, you all here, and you're interested, that's great, right? We probably need to poll the rest of the folks, because we need to be fair. So we go through that process, won't take very long. I would ask Corning Fiber, the Corning people, to come down, right, the ones that invented the fiber optics. I would ask them to come down and meet with the council, right, and they could help with the engineering of the network. So that would be a way to shortcut the process. The price of piece would be that we probably have to use their products, you know, to put the network together, but that's the same products that Verizon and AT&T and everybody else uses. The second thing we would have to do is we would look for local construction companies to help. Then the third thing that we have to do, which is the toughest thing we have to do, is we have to figure out who is going to operate your local network on a day-to-day, monthly basis. And we have some great ideas about how to do that. Terry's got some ideas. We have a company who is willing to do it, and it is that same company I talked about earlier, EPB of Chattanooga. Their board has approved for them to take their network from 100,000 to 1 million subscribers, and they can white label their services and bring them across the border into Georgia. So that gives you an option that looks something like this. You have this internet price, and we can hold that solid, but they could bring the voice, and they could bring the video. And I built their head end, so they have the same head end as UVerse has, or the same as CenturyLink. So you could have 400 channels. You could have Bob's Your Uncle spend $200 a month, right, for your TV service if you wanted to. We don't think that's the idea. We think that you should start here, very simply. Get this high-speed broadband connection. We can come to your community. I do this for like Westfield Gas and Electric in Massachusetts. And we can sit down with the citizens and say, look, you buy this TV, here's the applications, here's the different channels that you can get, right? If you have a Roku box or an Apple TV box, right, we can help you with that. AT&T is going to provide what we call a skinny bundle here shortly. Now, I don't know if you folks are Georgia Bulldog fans or whatever, right? So, yeah, right. So I play for this orange team, DT team called Syracuse, up there in the North Country. We're probably going to get our butts whipped by Clemson this weekend, but it looked good last year when we beat them. But anyway, long story short, there are some unforgivables that if you buy the network, you want to be able to see on your TV set. This we'll put into the survey. We'll try to understand what you want to watch if you want to have a TV service. In Westfield Gas and Electric in Massachusetts and Western Mass, we help the people put these dishes onto their houses. So we call it poor man's triple play. And so their installers actually will help you with that, because in Western Massachusetts, the dishes either point east to watch the Boston Red Sox, or they point west to watch the New York Yankees. The Yankees are playing in Albany, New York, and the other ones are playing in Westfield, Massachusetts. So there are a lot of ways for us to help you to get back to the level of services that you want, but not have to pay the prices.
If I interrupt just a minute, I was negligent in not doing this, and I apologize, but I'm going to pass around a clipboard. If you give me your contact information, I will keep you informed as we go forward. But I do need your contact information, and if you have an email and a phone number, that would be great. I've got some business cards, so if you don't get a chance to sign up, you can send me your contact information. But I'm sorry, Michael, I interrupted.
Oh, no.
But we need to get that before you all leave. Thank you.
Okay, $50 a month, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
$50 a month at 40%, which is like 400 something people, or households. That's only gonna be a little over $5 million in 20 years.
Well, there's probably a 2% inflation factor in here that's driving that number, and it's not just $50 a month. You've got a $49 installation fee, and you've got the $9 a month that so you got to base it. We based it on putting residential gateways in everybody's houses, so you're actually at 60 is the total bill. I have to look and see what inflation factors are here.
Right, I understand.
Let me see.
That's not even
There's a 2% inflation factor that kicks in year 4, and there's also a 7% sales tax that's on it as well.
Okay.
And it's in revenue. So that's another 9% plus the $60 a month. So, and it's growing right at 2% a year. So we could actually, if you want to take afterwards, we'll pull the income statement up.
Okay, great. My question is, in reference to the gentleman in the back of Charlesburg, that already has fiber optic in the ground going to that community, would you just connect to that fiber optic system, or would you see what kind of cable you have?
We would probably
You'd have to put your own conduit in
The ones that already have it.
Yeah, so I'm in the South Nine, so I'm about 4 hours. You down the Clarence Way or where? Oh, yeah. I spent some time in Gloucester State. Are they?
Water line and gas line. I said, well, how far you know? We're going
Nope, obviously neither is Al.
But they're running it.
Well, that, you know, hey, I don't know the answer to the question. Is it in fiber to the home or is it just? See, AT&T will run it here. If you had a Walmart here in town, you had AT&T service right there in town. You had a McDonald's, you had AT&T. But they never served the rest of it. They would just pick up Village area.
It has more fiber in the community.
I don't know the answer.
So we're going
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a little bit more, so I'm sorry I interrupted, but Michael will let you get back.
We've met before. You had the round one?
We'll talk some
You
more.
live on the front.
Just a minute, folks. We got a little bit more.
In medical.
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, just, I'll put one other thing up here, just to kind of maybe tease you just a little bit. But I think it's kind of important for you folks to see it. I show you this picture, it's a little bit of an eye chart, but a couple ways to look at this, and one of my bosses wrote a book on this not too long ago, Marcus Weldon, you could look him up online. But the world that we're seeing evolve here very, very fast is a world that essentially is what I call a wireless world. So if you look at all the things that are going to happen over the next 10 years, or over the next 20 years, I won't live to see it, but the MBA schools are cranking out the folks, and we're doing something called artificial intelligence, right? And it's coupling with something called the Internet of Things. So those are two terms that you need to think about. And you hear the third term called the cloud. Now the cloud is nothing more than a data center. It's a bunker with a whole bunch of really, really smart servers and computers, and it's got a bunch of routers in it. And Amazon has them. That's how they're able to make all your stuff come to life. And oh, by the way, just in case you're wondering, Amazon Prime, they make absolutely no money at all on that. As a matter of fact, they lose billions on it. But because you hop on the internet and connect to their data centers and buy and get their services that they're getting from the manufacturers, that's how that stock price is $1,200 a share. Just so the world that we see is a wireless world. Okay? So if you come with me to the open mining pits for all the copper and all the other things that they do in Australia right now, we just finished a project, and all those gigantic trucks, those trucks that are as big as a football field, they all drive around that pit 40, 50 miles an hour. There ain't a driver in one of them. It's all controlled by the wireless networks. And on our roadways, I may live to see it, I may not. All the truck drivers there are today, you can pretty much get rid of all of them, right? Those trucks are all going to drive themselves. And it's all, if you don't think it's coming, go to San Francisco, drive down through Silicon Valley, hop on a UPS major delivery truck, and you'll notice, and you get picked up at the San Francisco airport, and the car door opens up, you'll notice that there's no driver in it. Now, I don't get in those cars, right? This is me, right? Uber has already made the decision that they will, in fact, right, they're going to go driverless, right, worldwide. And if you go to the last one that comes, I'm trying to think of the last one that comes to mind real fast. If you're going into France and you're going into Paris by 2025, you won't have to worry about getting hit by a car in the Champs-Élysées because no cars are going to be allowed in the city. So the world's changing fast, folks. But it is what I call a wireless world, right? We'll be able to put a sensor on your house, and we'll be able to tell on your electric bill how much the refrigerator's using, how much the stove's using, how much the hot water heater's using. We'll have a little device that'll be on the house, and we'll help you to lower your bills. You'll be able to see it on your phone as well. And in a lot of cases, you can do some of that today. You go to Disney World, and you go to Disney Village, and you go to park your car. They built 2 new beautiful parking garages. So now you can go floor by floor, and it tells you what spaces are open. In about a year and a half, if you have the software in your car, not only will it save your parking spot inside of that parking garage, it will actually direct your car to get to the parking spot. Okay, this is the world that's coming. I don't necessarily love it, but it's coming at a high rate. Yes, ma'am?
I have a question. You said that everything's changing. How easy would it be for this service to be changed with the technology changes?
Right. So your answer is really simple. The whole thing runs like a foundation of a house. The foundation of the house is the fiber optic network. The basis for the reason that Al is so keen on this, and so I get to do this all over the planet, is because if you build the foundation of a house, you can build any kind of house on it that you want. So to answer your question, this world's coming like a freight train, right? Smart lighting, we have smart garbage cans like in Miami, right? And the garbage cans fill up, they call the mothership, and somebody comes out and picks up the garbage. It's nice, right? It's nice. And that's coming to my daughter's house in Las Vegas next year, right? So they'll know how many trucks they need to deploy and when, and how to make it all come to life. Let's see some other things. Smart water, right? So I was with DC Water. They're the largest purveyors of water here in the United States the other day. And they're looking on how to smarten up the water and make it more efficient for people to actually have. So that's all wireless controlled But when you backhaul all that information, just like your phones, right, from 4G LTE to 5G, the only way that 5G will work in the United States is if it has a fiber underpinning. Now, why do I tell you all that? Because if you build this fiber optic network in your community, there are all kinds of streams of revenue that could come to the city and back to the community beyond you paying $50 a month for the service. If AT&T wants to build a new tower, if AT&T wants to put small cell 5G service, the city can backhaul that for AT&T. They will not have to build here. That's revenue that will come in. So there's all kinds of business opportunities once the network is in place that can help you pay for this. But from a business case, I can't put that in a business case because that's a little bit like cheating, right? I know it's coming, just like the gentleman said. You're probably going to have twice the population down here. The land's probably relatively inexpensive. You can build a house here cheap. You know, my kids are in Jersey, work in Philadelphia, live about the same distance from Philly that you all live from Atlanta. Their taxes on their house, $16,000 a year, right? And that land was the only land that they could afford to drop that house on, right? Now, if it's less than $16,000 a year to have a house here for school and town taxes and city taxes, right? I guarantee you if I take you to Norcross and we drop that house down there, the taxes are probably quite a bit more. So you're going to be a very desirable place to live. And as the tax base grows and the houses grow, the model's only going to get better for you. So that's as close to a paid political announcement you're going to get from me. Yes, sir.
All right. So I understand how the billings come in. So you're saying each household that assumes or takes on this, and it's the 40%, just say it's 40%. That's all we're gonna have to pay is the tax, the 2%, plus the $60.
Yep.
There's nothing else. Now, okay.
I don't have anything hidden at this point.
Well, unless you want to add.
No, what I'm saying is.
TV and stuff.
Well, what I'm saying is, okay, they take out a $2 million loan, the city does.
Yep.
Okay, and you're telling me that that's gonna pay for it?
Yep.
Nothing else. And when does it start? Because, I mean, I don't understand. I mean, it doesn't really matter to me, but I'm just curious. Something's not clicking here. If they borrow $2 million
Yep.
from whoever they borrow it from,
Yep.
they're gonna have to start paying it back, or are they gonna wait?
No, it's good. No, your question's extremely good. So let me try to answer the gentleman's question by showing the numbers, because it's really important. If we go back to the business model, let me open one of them up again. I'll just open up this one. Because this one's actually alive. It's got all the formulas in it, right? We'll just play a little bit here. Just wait for it to open. So the question on the table is how does the payback and how does it all start and where does it all finish? And it's a great question. So when I actually do the modeling of this, let me see if I can do it in a way that makes some sense. Okay, so we said that, and we can look at this in a little more detail, but we said that we would not start with the first customer's revenue until month number 7. We kind of showed you 372 and 700 and something, and 1187. So it takes 3 years to build it, right? So the question on the table is, well, how does this actually work? So there were two loans to actually take out. Their variable commercial loans is how I did it, and I did it as a mortgage, so you've got to pay the interest and the principal at the same time. But we cheated a little bit because we know from almost every provider, we have set this up so that in this case, in the first loan, we're paying interest only for the first 2 years. So we're not paying back any principal, right? So it's a bit of a cheat, right? But we can get those terms from the RUS, we can get them from CoBank, we can probably get them from almost any broadband supplier that's here in a commercial loan like that. That's something that the city has to negotiate. So then we've got an 8-month hiatus on the second loan that we need to take. So you set up the loan and you only draw down what you need in order to actually build. So we're pushing that thing out right before we start paying the principal. So we've got, in this particular case, we've got almost 18 months to put revenue in the bank in order to be able to make that first set of principal and interest payments that we're actually making. Now, I may get shot down at the wall because we may get into negotiations and they may say, no, we're not going to do this. Well, if that's the case and we can't get terms like that, then that payback period, all of a sudden, everything's going to shift, right? And that's why I run 25 versions of this, because I don't know, I honestly don't know the answer of what kind of commercial terms we could get to borrow the $2 million. And I don't know if, Al, if you have any thoughts at all about that, in terms of where you might borrow the money from, whether you could get interest only, you know.
Well, we were looking at USDA, both grants and loans. And that's the one, obviously, USDA, Rural Utility Services, and everything. Just came back from the Georgia Municipal Association summit meeting on this with USDA. Andrew Hayes is our rep, and he has said he's willing to come here to Grantville to talk about it.
Isn't most of USDA approved for residential for loans in this area anyway?
Here's how we would do it.
Okay.
So there are 2 branches to the USDA. One is the telecom side, one is the electrical side. So take the telecom side, I've dealt with them. Paperwork's about this much, right? So because you have an electrical division, the paperwork is about this much. Mr. Claffey, who runs that division, and I know him pretty well, has $4 billion to loan, and he will loan that at rates less than 4%. He'll go longer than 20 years, and he would give them 24-month hiatus. The reason I know that is because I got, for Northeast Oklahoma, the largest loan in the history of the RUS on the telecom side, and we were able to get to 24 months terms, and we got the interest rates at about 2.2%.
This reminds me of more of a construction loan. Are you only doing draws as needed and
Absolutely.
increment?
Yeah.
So it's more like a construction loan?
Right.
Gotcha.
The RUS, though, is extremely strict about one item. If you all go into this business and we say to them that we are going to build this thing in 36 months, we absolutely have to have it built. At whatever time frame we pick and however we set this up, we have to meet the dates. If we were in the electronics or the construction business, there is no forgiveness. That loan is going to close, and their lawyers, I've been to these battles before, so we would have to be extremely precise if you all were to borrow money, because we have to get it
Be careful who
done.
we pick to do that contracting.
You betcha.
Because that isn't, would there be a penalty at that point, or did it require closing?
Well, the construction company would walk away, but you all would be on the hook.
Yeah.
Right, so we don't want to get into, this is why I kind of preach local labor. I mean, we can pick up the phone and call Blue Bell, Pennsylvania, get Hinkles and McCoy that does like Verizon and AT&T. They would come down here and help you, but I think you could find local folks that would be very attuned to this and could do a great job for you.
Would you take bids on that then?
Well, your city would have to take bids on all that.
Okay.
You have to, you have to play by the rules.
Yeah.
What would the penalty be, Michael, if it was finished in the
What they would do is they basically hold, let's say that we've got a $2 million loan, we spent $1.5 million and we missed the date and we still need to draw down that $500,000, good luck, you all better pass the hat. They don't, I mean, when you sign that contract, that's the only negative to them. But in terms of working with you and helping you with the interest rates and everything, the electrical side of the RUS is a fantastic place to do it.
I mean, that's something you can write in the contract for your contractor too, that they've got a timeline and they will be dependent on this.
And I would put the penalty clauses right into it.
That's right, so I'm not worried about that.
For the communities that have fiber optic ran already, like St. Charles, will you be able to use their existing fiber optic, or is it outdated?
We'd probably have to overbuild it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think whoever owns that fiber, I don't think they'd be willing to play ball.
Well, it's not connecting to anybody. From what I understand, it's just in the ground.
Right, but whoever owns it would have to sell it to the city of Grantville for us to be able to use it.
Well, the developer put it in, didn't it? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, if you could make a deal with them, the answer is,
I mean, it was
we would shoot the fiber,
it
make
was
sure
on
that
the home.
it's all spliced together. If it's not, someone would have to splice it together. But the answer to use the fiber, yes, if you could get ownership rights to it, absolutely.
Did we discuss how we pay it back?
That's a monthly payment, it's your service fee.
Michael, now, what is the procurement
How we
cost?
gonna pay that to the
$2.5 million.
The 60 bucks.
$2 million. Is that gonna change how homeowners?
We're like
Self-sustaining business case.
Well, we would go through a
run
series,
it
we would
just
go
like
through a
the
series of
utilities.
business models.
In fact, we have.
See, I
internet
think
Depending upon
utility.
what y'all
We
come back
sell it
with,
to you,
we've gotta
you
run this
pay us,
multiple times.
we pay
So,
off
I
the-
want
You may
you
be
to
able to
make
come
them
back and show me you
understand
could do
that
it.
monthly cost didn't expense home.
Well, that would be.
No, this is completely free.
You know, it's
You could come back and say-
I don't think everybody here understands that.
Yeah, you
know,
could come,
that-
yeah, you could come back and say 5% of the community is on school lunches and they can only afford $10. Are we gonna give them a basic service for $10 a month? Well, that's all up there, but we could build that
This is
into
just
the
a
model.
basic number,
Right,
right?
this is just, this is a first pass of many passes. Just to give you something to kind of chew in your brains.
Yes, just want to wrap up, I want to summarize the information you've given us. So basically, were you saying on timetable wise, right, from right now, from today, through all the models, going forward from the models, everything, it would take roughly 3 years from
Today.
just going from today to that point, and that's not us, we're gonna have to do the polling, we're gonna have to get voting or so on and so forth to bring this in, to go through your 25 different models, and all the way up through service, and then from today, at the end of your 3 years, we should have internet to all the homes, 40% wise or more.
Right.
Okay.
And you could, yeah.
We'll have fiber to everyone, and they can sign on.
Like you said, some homes will get it earlier than.
Correct. But that 3 years would be the end of that.
If he's here at the meeting, we should start.
Yeah, so let me answer that question, because that's an excellent question. So the answer to the question is, based upon the model that we have right now, and this is a very, I call it comfortable model and a conservative model, we've done it 3 years. If the city council said, well, let's get some bids together, and we want this whole thing to happen once we've done our feasibility study, we want it to happen in 18 months. Is it doable? Absolutely, it's doable. Okay? To make it less than that, I think you're really pushing the envelope. You need probably 2 construction seasons to be real, right? To get the people here, to get everything set up, to get all the rights of ways, to get the easements, to get everything squared away. Now, you own the poles, right? So the majority of this fiber optic cable is going to go up in the air, right? That's the fastest and least expensive way to do it. But in the housing developments where you have buried services, right, we have to follow the rules, and we're going to go buried in all those locations. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't bury the fiber as well, because you own the right-of-way and the easements that the poles are sitting in. This is a choice. We've put the prices on the table, y'all can make a decision. Buried is generally a little more expensive, but there's less visual pollution. I don't make that call. That's all up to you folks, right? We'll just run the numbers and tell you what's going to be. I know you had a question, sir, from Buffalo.
Oh, yes. City of Covington had their City Public Works Department install fiber optic. Can we do that with your system also?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Again, I'm a big preacher of local label. If you had linemen that lived here and worked here, if we could convince them to do it, sometimes from union rules, they're a little, they want to work electrical as opposed to working in the telecom space.
Mm-hmm.
We could do that, right? So we probably have to bring contractors in to make this a reality, right? To scale it to the 18 months. But we're sitting at 3 years and, a couple months, because that's just, as this gentleman asked me, how many versions, it is going to be a bunch of versions. This is just a draft, right? We only ran like 5, I think if you looked at my sheet, we only did like 5 versions of this. So it all depends on what comes back from a feasibility and from you all pushing back on the council to say, we want it, A, B, the community wants it, C, and we'll do all the rest of it. We'll help them to do all the other part of it, right? I mean, like I said, he knows the local rep for the USDA, I know the guy that runs the place, right? So we can probably figure out how to get them in here and get something on the table for you.
Can you send letters out to all the residents so they can decide if they want it there or not?
I have a question now. You're talking about running on poles versus underground. Is there a percentage-wise on how much more it would cost to run underground? Because it's better to pay more upfront to get it run underground than having to pay for all the service work we're gonna have to do with trees and everything else. Take those lines off the poles.
Yeah, fair question. So it's probably around 30,000 a mile, depending upon the amount of make-ready that you gotta do area.
More?
No, that's about the price per mile. It's gonna.
Underground.
To go aerial.
Aerial.
Somewhere between 20 and 30, right, depending upon how easy it is to get on the poles. And that's the people, the equipment, the trucks, the cable, the splicing.
Total.
That's it, right? So that's kind of an average. If you go underground, it can run anywhere from 30 to 55. And it depends on whether you direct bury it, right, which puts a little small sheath around it, or whether you put conduit in the ground and pull through the conduit. If you had spare conduits and could use spare conduits that were built in the buried developments, it's $5,000 a mile, right? Because everything's already there. It's really, really cheap. We just don't know any of that at this point. We don't know any.
I know we can't splice into an existing, we can't splice into the existing fiber optics that are already out there because they own those fiber optics and we would have to do all that. But do they own the conduit that they put down that fiber optic goes through? Can we run through their conduit?
It would be a negotiation.
Oh, okay. Because there is that one that they just buried going.
Can I say something?
Oh, sure.
Let me see if I can do something here, because I know all of you here. These are great questions. They are, however, operational questions. Okay? And those all get negotiated in contracts. You decide you want to add a service, you don't, wherever it is. The first decision you got to make is the leadership decision. The leadership decision and the operating decision are two different things. Leadership decision, is this worth finding out if it'll work here? In which case you got to do a feasibility study. Okay? And that feasibility study, if we did it, would include adding everything he's got here and giving you another chart, the layer that says, okay, if you added TV services to it, this is what the numbers would do. If you added local telephone services, everybody wants a home phone, they want one, what that would be. Businesses have to have that. Okay, I got more than one line. You can do that. And it will give you various stages together that we would work out in the model that say, here's all those questions answered up front and what the payback, the monthly cost is, and the revenue that goes to the city, and how much money you got to borrow to do all of them, parts of them, pick them, a la carte. Okay? And you can even do your TV where you can have a station, now if you want the SEC channels, you can watch My Beloved Dogs. You're sitting there and you got to buy a package that includes all of that stuff from whoever it is, Charter, Comcast, you pick them, they got a name, whoever you're using. And there's also a possibility you could, if the city determined it wanted, you could offer a la carte. Say, I want that one channel, and not have to buy it. Oh, if you got kids and you want Disney on your thing, you got to buy a whole lot of other stuff to get Disney, because they got to package it. You get to decide all those things, and those are all operating decisions you make later when you decide what you're going to do. And the feasibility study can include different types of financing for different ways to do it. If you got a checkbook and you want to write it all, go right ahead. There's no payback. So that sort of thing. He's laid out what's a conservative approach here at 40% when the national average is 54%, and he does that for the very purpose we do, conservative, and that is, are we sure this is going to work this way? Yeah. And I'm going to he wants to give you the worst case of what it is at 40%. He thinks it's
about as bad as it gets. But to Terry's point, we can add grants, equity, you could do it as a mortgage, you could do it as a bond, right? So then you wouldn't pay anything. If we did this as a bond and you just had a balloon payment at the end of this whole thing, you'd all be standing up and down saying, I want it tomorrow afternoon, because the numbers would be so rosy, because all you gotta do is save your money, make a payment 20 years from now, none of us will be here, we ain't gotta worry about it, right? That's for someone else to figure out, right? But so the figures don't lie, so the liars can do whatever they want. We won't, you know, you can look at all that, the model allows you to do all those things. It really, I hate to say it, but it does come back to something that Terry said and Al said it earlier. You know, we're here to help you, right? And Terry and I would, and I, you know, I can bring the Corning folks down, Al can get the USDA folks down here. We can help you, put this thing together, right? And that's the goal of it, right? It's an educational process. If you asked Al how much he paid me to spend my time to come work with him over the last 6 months, the answer would be nothing, right? All we're trying to do at this point in the process is educate you, the citizens, and his team. How much is it going to cost? Is there light at the end of the tunnel to pay it back? If so, how bad is it, right, that it's going to be? Do you want us to be a moneymaker for the city, or do you just want to try to break even, right, and provide it as a service? Those are all the things you have to help Al and the mayor and the folks that sit on the council. You got to help them with all that. Can we go fast? Sure. Yeah. Terry, write us a check, right? I was at a utility. I won't tell you who they were, but they were looking at getting into a business similar to this, and the package to do the first 2 counties was $2.3 billion. So I put it on the table, waited for everybody to pass out. They didn't, because President Trump gave them $11 billion in tax relief. And I said to the guy, how do you want to finance this? And the guy says, if we really like it, Michael, we'll just write you a check. Then I fell out of my chair. Right? So, you know, I mean, there are, the USDA RUS electrical route is a fantastic program for you all to go. You could stretch it to 30 years and you would never even feel it going in. But, you know, we can't guide you. All I know is if you put the internet in here, the value of your house will go up on average about 8% the day it goes by your front door. So you can figure another 8% day one.
Okay, now, since we got the money and all that stuff situated, if we started now, basically you're talking 3 months, 4 months, getting all the paperwork, getting all the information, the bids in, 3, maybe 6 months, say 6 months out.
Real.
When are you talking about breaking ground? That's what I want to know. If we can get it started.
If you can start it, well, what do you think, Terry?
Depends on your feasibility study.
Yeah.
What it says, how many people, feasibility study is going to tell you how many people are going to subscribe, okay? And where are they, all right? And if it's my $2 million, I can tell you that I'm going where they are, all right? And I'm going to have a guy out there that as they dig the trench and goes by your house, somebody's knocking on your door, would you like to subscribe? Yeah. So you get the revenue day one instead of the end of a year. A lot of places say, you know, if you build it and then you turn it on. I don't like that idea. I say you build it and you sell it as you go.
Yes.
And I guarantee you, if you start on the other side of the interstate, every single household will.
Yes.
Let me tell you this. We've been working, and I will tell you this when I come back to talk to you. So now, this is a crusade to me. I had a whole other career, okay? And my thing is to give broadband to everybody in the state of Georgia. I'm working with 17 counties, 7 of whom have already done the feasibility studies for, okay? 26% of those people in 17 counties are on dial-up. And they're going to lose an entire generation of children. They will not be able to find a job or anything for what they're doing. 26% are still listening to that beat that you and I forgot about a decade ago. Okay? There's 9% of the people, 9% of the people are served with high-speed internet in those 17 counties. Right? 65% of those people are what the state refers to as underserved. They can get something. 3 megabits probably at the top. Okay? But little towns that don't do this, counties in that case, that don't do this, they're going to drive the blow away. I mean, I'm sorry. And in this case, I would say probably somewhere splitting that.
So if the feasibility study goes out to the community and comes back, because you need the monthly cycle for the bills, right, to get all the mailers out, get them all back. Terry's team can do a statistical sample, right, which would be valid.
And we do that by phone.
And
I'll talk to you.
Yeah. So we'll get the statistical sample, get the USDA RUS down here in parallel. Hear what they've got to say. I've got a series of business cases I can run. I have all the baseline information at this point in time. I would ask Corning to come down here in parallel, bring their engineers and give us a high-level engineering study, which they will also do for free.
Oh, wow.
And have them give us some, validate the 30,000 a mile, the 55,000 a mile, take a look. So they'll put engineers on the ground. They're part of the whole package. So they would help us, right? Can we get all that done in parallel, have it all boxed up and ready by, say, Christmas, right? So you'd have all your answers. Now, the trickiest and hardest part of this thing is the financing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a big chunk. I know $2 million doesn't sound like a lot of money. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, right? If I had it, I wouldn't be here. So I just, we got to be pretty thoughtful, because that's a big chunk of change. Just like if I asked those guys down south to spend $2.3 billion on what they wanted to do, it's big money, right? So you can't make that decision too fast, right? You got to. I mean, this is just me talking to you, but I said, we got to. Let's go through the process. But I think we can shorten it.
But the first step is still the leadership decision, is it worth doing a feasibility study? If that's the case, you gotta get on that.
What percentage return do you have to get on this study in order for it to move forward?
What kind of sample would you need?
What kind of sample? Like you say, 100 people return, 25 say yes and 75 say no.
I would go with, if it wasn't 40%, I wouldn't fool it.
Okay.
But that's why we would also do a phone survey. See, we'll call in random people, okay, and ask them what they have, what service they have. Would you be willing to change if this was available to you? And not tell them it's the city, but if it were available, would you change? What are you currently paying? $200-something a month, okay? And just 1 second. And then, okay, what channels are you watching? And we'll know who'll subscribe to what. I can tell you, for as a rule of thumb, 1/3 of the people don't buy because they don't like who they got already. They're just, nobody likes their cable.
We don't have anybody now, so.
But it depends on where you are, though. You got somebody. You got HughesNet or whatever. But 1/3 of the people that you call, they'll change just because you say, I can bring it to your house, without going into detail. And they won't ask a whole lot of questions when they find out they can do all the things they can do at the speed at which they can do it in order to mean to the community to do it, and that the money stays here. Okay, that's a big deal. Every one of you, I was saying somebody a while ago, every one of you writes a check for your service every month and puts it in the mail. At midnight, that money's gone from Granville, Coweta County for that matter. And some guy that you're talking about in Pennsylvania is going to make the decision, how are we going to spend that in corporate? And he's going to make that decision based on his quarterly needs, and what he's got to report to his shareholders. And they're going to put that money right back where it gets the most due, and believe me, that's not Granville.
So
Why you got to do it yourself?
Right? City council handles the feasibility.
Yeah, so basically, Terry's company would do that. There's going to be a charge for that, right? That is an investment. It's also, all things being equal, Terry has never seen this study until tonight, right? And even though we know each other, he's probably going to take it apart, right? And decide whether it's actually real or Memorex, okay? And he's going to report back to them without my knowledge, because that's the thing. I'm a vendor and I'm a gun runner, right? This is a fox in charge of the hen house doing this, right? So whenever I do something like this for any community, they've got to have a separate party do the backstop of whether these numbers are right, wrong, or need to be fixed, right? You can't leave it to the vendor, the guy who's going to probably be selling you the equipment, to be making those kinds of decisions. I like to think I'm honest, but I also got masters and everything else. I try to do the best I can, but every place I've gone, whether it's Northeast Oklahoma, whether it's Newport, I'm trying to think of some of the ones, Greenville, Tennessee, whatever, I don't allow them to take this model. Only one time in my career have I ever allowed them to take this to a financial institution in order to be able to borrow the money, because they just couldn't afford to do anything else. And so if you go to the feasibility study, that would be Mr. Drury's company's responsibility to work with the city and come up with.
And in full disclosure, I would tell you, like the 7 counties out of the 17 that we already did the feasibility for, I gave him the numbers, I had to run them, make sure I hadn't lost my mind. Our guy did, lost my mind here, and we met in Athens to do that.
Yeah, so we do, Corning runs an independent business model as well. Their model runs about 3% or to 5% within my model, right? but a lot of times we invoke the models and we do the models blindly, and we look at them to make sure that we're not losing our mind, as Terry said. But we want to be, I mean, it's back to the 2 million. This is a big decision for your community. And you go down this road and borrow this kind of money, we gotta be right. We don't get a second chance. This thing goes sideways. You know, we gotta be right about people taking the service. We gotta be right about how much they're willing to pay. Yes, ma'am.
What if we wanted to expand it to like Hogansville, Luthersville? How easy would, this is actually a two-part question, how easy would that be for us to do? And how would we be able to do that? This is your part. Would we be able to do that?
The answer that I would give you can tell them whatever you think, Michael, and don't feel bad about contradicting me in this case. Yes, you can do that. You can include it, but the way to find out is you put it in the feasibility study and say, do we want to think about that?
Yeah. Is that something we can think about?
We think about that
get ours
because
first.
we would run it as an internet utility.
But I'm not talking about just for Grantville, I'm talking
Well,
about.
that's it, we could expand it. What's the cost to lay the fiber? What's the rate of return? Is there going to be a return, or are we running it to Hogansville for one customer?
Well, that's what the feasibility study would be about to say, is what
Okay.
we're doing.
Okay, so we gotta have feasibility study. Is the city gonna accrue the cost of this? I mean, are they willing?
That's up to the city council.
All right, that's what I'm asking.
That'll be a discussion. You have 3 members of the city council here tonight.
Okay.
Michael, I got a question. What's the chances of the city going on board 2 million? And you know, you gotta think, hope for the best, expect the worst. What if you had to borrow 2.5 million? And then some newer technology comes along before we even ever get it up and running, or soon after we get it in as a competition to us, that could take away some of that 40% user that you're banking on. You're a genius, I know that already. I know you all to know that. Is there somebody out there that could, Verizon or AT&T, that could come up with something new right around the corner to affect that? And then now we're running on 20% and got a $2 million debt.
So, folks, the question on the table is, what if AT&T were to show up at the door tomorrow and put 5G all over the network, or bring some other service all over the network and go into competition with you in order to provide it? And this gentleman with the camera has said there's a local company that's starting to run fiber in your general area. Okay? So the answer is yes. You're now moving from, I move into your town and I put up my house and I call Al on the phone and I say, I'd like electrical service. Well, who else am I calling for the electrical service? Nobody, right? So the adventure here is more than just the $2 million. The adventure is that you're getting into a retail business, right? And you asked about the question in the back about expanding that business, right, into other communities, right, to kind of put some space or leverage, right, between you and competition that would show up. Now, I'll say it with a straight face, is it goes something like this. So the reason, so it is a fantastically good question. So let me try to answer it the best I can. And Terry, if you want to contradict me, you go right ahead.
I'd be terrified to do that.
Now, here's the thing, right? We've talked to you all about these 4 services, 100 meg, 500 meg, a gig, and 10 gig. So why did I pick those numbers? Why did I pick 100 megabit service, right? You know, did I check the wind, right? How did I do that? Why did I do that? The reason I did that is because if you put this service into play, right, 100, 500, gig, and 10, in order for your current competition to catch you, they've got to overbuild themselves. They got to go spend $2 million. So we know that guy in Philadelphia, he's thinking about his check 30, 60, 90 days. So is he making an investment in Philadelphia, or is he going to make an investment in Grantville and try to win you back? So this is like taking the money and running it as fast as you can for the border. We built this network so that we're trying to basically put the competition to bed. Now, if Al decides one night when he wakes up that he gets generous to all of you, and he just decides to sit down and get on his computer and dial into the system and change your 100 megabit service to 200 megabit service when you wake up in the morning and charge you the same price, which is what we did in Chattanooga for 60,000 people, right? When Comcast came calling and said, hey, we're going to give you a base price of 200 megabits. So we just went in the door and sent a letter to everybody that next month and said, hey, we just changed your service to 300 megabits. We'll charge you the same price. Aren't we great people?
Because it didn't cost you a penny.
Because it didn't cost me a nickel to do it. Right? So Al has the keys to the kingdom. Right? We can once we build the network, we can run the service at any speed we want and charge whatever we want for that service. The cost of goods sold is the same. It's flat. Yes, sir.
If, hypothetically, let's just say that our town has began to be squeezed by these other people.
Yeah.
Can we not sell this to AT&T or buy it in the town?
Which was the only thing I was going to add. You just said, if they come here, they're not going to spend $2 billion to overbuild you. They're going to buy service from you.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But the answer
It was
to
such a good investment for AT&T to do it. Trust me, when I asked him in May of 2016, they said, damn, Al, good job, we're coming there.
Gotcha.
They'd already done it. And at this point, if that competition comes in and we're already rolling, I'd say, where were you before? No thanks.
Well, but money talks and the rest
Yeah.
walks.
That's right.
Exactly.
So here's one of the things, right? We're not going to go to the well and say, we'll give that to you for $19.95. We can paint that car, Earl Scheib, right? So we're not going to, we don't advocate to the cities to do that kind of a thing, right? So they're offering you a base price, it's about $60 a month. I mean, this is an argument you can have behind closed doors without Terry and I here. But you can pick a number. If this thing comes back and they say it's a 60% take rate, people are going to sign up like we did in Northeast Oklahoma. I went to everybody and said, you want to sign up? Give me a $100 bill. We'll hold your place in line. Okay? They had 40,000 consumers. All right? So we had a little trouble with the millionaires and the governor lived around the lake. A little hard to separate them from that $100. But the people that didn't have any internet and their kids that didn't have any internet, we had $5,100 bills in about 4 months.
That's why it was in North Carolina. So
now, they had to spend $100 million to build their network. That's a different story. But people's interest, right, about wanting to get this thing and get it into play, it's there. My point to you is, put something in the field. This is a 5 nines reliable network. That means the network we're going to build is 99.999% reliable.
Not good enough. No.
That's okay. Okay? So that's what they call a carrier class network. This is the same equipment created. That means that you're going to be out of service on the average 12 minutes a year. That's going to be your downtime. The rest of the time you're going to be up and running. So that's the network. We can make it better than that, but I don't think you need better than that. But the net of it is we're going to build a world-class network. Would AT&T or Verizon buy that network from you to backhaul their 5G? Yes, it's the same equipment that they know today. It's in their network today. So yeah, you could sell it. People have sold these networks. Don't advocate doing it, but can you do it? Because the tax write-up off on this thing, to my knowledge, they do not.
This utility, I just wonder if they had any regulation of utility.
No more than they had in New Zealand to sell water. Maybe they had some there. But this is not a business. They don't want to get the telecom business. Too many checks are written by large telecom companies to politicians that they don't want to.
I have another question. The city